welcome back. 3 decades ago, Joe Murphy was living the dream. A #1 draft pick in the NHL, later a Stanley Cup champion and multi-millionaire. But then the close-knit hockey brotherhood lost track of him. There were whispers, news reports of assaults. Joe Murphy disappeared. Until another former NHLer and TSN's Rick Westhead found him.
It's late June in Kenora, Ontario. And 12-year NHL veteran Trevor Kidd is helping us chase a ghost.
Getting some messages here from some people out in Kenora that there's a former player that is, walking the streets of Kenora that is homeless.
For weeks, Kidd has received phone messages regarding Joe Murphy, a former NHL player and Stanley Cup winner.
Trev, right here. I was just out for a drive with my kids, and I saw this Joe Murphy. I'm just watching him right now, walking up into the bush where people say he's staying.
Anyways, we'll kind of have a little glance. Everybody keep their eyes peeled, and if we actually, maybe see him, then we'll quickly try and find a spot and have a conversation.
Here's Joe Murphy in. Murphy scores! Joe Murphy doing what he does best, the speed down the wing. Murphy waiting up ahead. He scores!
It's every kid's dream to play in the NHL, and if they're playing hockey growing up in Canada.
One day our whole family's all excited about he's making the NHL. He won the Stanley Cup.
I can't believe this happened to me, and I'm the happiest man in the world.
Now my brother's living as a street person. It's the saddest thing I've ever really had to live through.
Detroit Red Wings are pleased to announce from the NCAA champions, Michigan State Spartans, Joe Murphy.
In 1986, Newmarket, Ontario's Joe Murphy made hockey history. The Canadian became the first U.S. college player to be drafted #1 in the NHL entry draft.
There was a reason he was first overall. He was such a skilled guy, and his speed, and he had that glide.
Right in, he shoots, he scores!
Murphy with surprising speed. He showed it in the first period.
Adam Graves was Murphy's teammate from 1986 to 1991.
He saw the ice. He could make a play at full speed. But what people didn't realize was how fast he was. He was strong on his skates. He had a quiet edge to his game, but he could absolutely fly.
Here's Joe Murphy, and he scores!
In November 1989, Murphy was traded to the Oilers, and it was in Edmonton where he truly hit his stride, alongside line mates Martin Gélina and Adam Graves. NHL executive Neil Smith has known Murphy from the very beginning.
And those three now are the kid line. All the veteran players have been there, done that. The young guys are more like, oh, man, this is exciting.
And a rink-wide pass is intercepted by Graves. In front for Murphy, he scores!
We're all young, and this was an opportunity, and we didn't know any better. We just wanted to go out, and we just wanted to play.
3 Oilers after the puck. Graves in front, Murphy scores!
He was a big game player. If you look at his National Hockey League career, his best hockey was always when it mattered most, in the playoffs.
Save, rebound, up front, they score! Murphy! And he gives the Edmonton Oilers a 6-5 overtime win. And here's a chance for Murphy. Shot, score! Murphy got the rebound, and it's 4-0 Edmonton. What a show. They have turned in. The Edmonton Oilers, Stanley Cup champions, 1990.
Joe's sister Kathy remembers it with great pride.
Well, I was there in Boston when he won the Stanley Cup. I was in the dressing room holding the Stanley Cup with my brother. I got goosebumps just saying it to you. It was amazing.
I can't believe it all worked out, man. It's just something I can't believe. It's a dream, you know. I feel very fortunate to be in this situation, and I'm going to cherish this moment forever.
But the following season, Murphy's life changed after a vicious body check from Detroit's Sean Burr. Murphy's ex-wife, Julie, recalls the incident.
And I do remember that he got hit very hard, to the point that I hadn't seen him have a reaction like this before. And then a couple minutes later, he was back out on the ice playing, and I remember thinking, oh, good, he's all right, he's okay.
Yeah, I definitely noticed changes. And you could just see he was starting to do erratic things. He was starting to do drugs, and he was starting to drink. He made these decisions to do these drugs. If he didn't have a brain injury, he wouldn't be doing these drugs.
How do you know that he was doing drugs?
He told me. Yeah, he told me what he was doing, and I saw him doing it.
But as his career went on and he moved around, I would hear Joe Murphy stories all the time coming back, like that he was just different.
Nash gets attacked by Joe Murphy.
You know, when he became a veteran and teams were talking about him at that point, about him, the things that he was saying and doing, then you're like, wow, this is crazy.
Murphy's 14-year NHL career ended in 2001, when the Washington Capitals released him after he was attacked by a stranger outside a New York nightclub. He disappeared from the close-knit world of pro hockey, only keeping in touch with his sister through a series of troubling emails.
He lived in Santa Marta, Colombia. He went to Peru, but he was still off. He wasn't the brother that I had that went into the NHL.
Joe lost contact with his sister, and in November of 2017, he was convicted of mischief after wrecking a hotel room in Kingston, Ontario. And then the hockey world began to hear whispers that Murphy was living in Kenora, homeless.
Downtrodden, alone but resilient.
Sometimes I sleep on the street.
How could a hockey star slip through the cracks?
The league let him down.
When W5 continues.
Former NHL player Trevor Kidd is driving through the streets of Kenora in northwestern Ontario. He's on the lookout for former player Joe Murphy.
Joe Murphy.
Over the last 3 decades, Murphy has gone from a first overall NHL draft pick
The Edmonton Oilers, Stanley Cup champions, 1990.
to Stanley Cup champion to living homeless and alone.
Looking forward to hopefully seeing him here. Looking forward to having a conversation. Do I know where to go from this? No.
Trevor Kidd never played hockey with Murphy. They barely knew each other. But as a fellow NHL alumni, he felt compelled to help.
It's like you've never played with this guy ever, but there's a feeling, there's something in the air that you know this guy, and it's simply because you've played in the league. Somewhere in this is where he's living. So I'm not sure where. Is that him?
I didn't see his face. That's him, eh?
Yeah. That does not look good, boys.
Trevor Kidd decides to approach Joe first.
Hey, Joe. I'm Rick. Nice to meet you.
Listen, pal, like I phoned Rick, I let him know about the situation. Obviously, when I found out that you were staying here and maybe things weren't that good, was obviously concerned and wondered if there's anything I could do.
Well, thanks for thinking of me and coming out. I appreciate it, guys. And whatever you need me to do, I'll...
Yeah, okay.
Trevor leaves us so we can have a private conversation.
Where are you staying in Kenora?
I've actually been quite... I've been living homeless in shelters across Ontario in different areas for many years now. And so it hasn't been easy. Right now, I'm based in a homeless shelter. And then sometimes I sleep outside in a tent. And sometimes I sleep on the street.
Would it be okay just if we walked maybe off this busy street to around where it's a little bit quieter? Could we do that for maybe 5 minutes more?
Sure.
I find it pretty noisy here. Do you remember how many shelters you've been in?
I've been in shelters in Toronto, a lot of cities, Belleville. I've been in Smith. I'll read across to like Smith Falls, Ottawa. It's a dozen, a lot of them. And then there's shelters, and then there's food places, like soup rooms, and then there's places you can go just for the day. You go in for the day, and you can get some food and relax, and try to get a shower.
Any idea how much money you had made in your career?
Yeah, I have an idea. Sometimes it's on the Lotto Max number, but it only gets up to about 15 or 20 million. And half of it, a lot of it went to taxes. But I helped a lot of people too. I'm very, very, very generous and kind person. So I bought people things. I got for schooling, houses, cars, and then people that were around my vicinity. I donated money to different foundations. I had a row where kids, underprivileged kids, would get season tickets at one of the teams I was at. So the money that's lost doesn't make you a bad person. I've lost money, but your life goes on, and you learn to live. And I had to adapt, and I adapted very quickly. And I became a panhandler. I had to make a little money. And anyway, so it was support things. And people are kind and generous and help, but I would never bother people. I've gotten some odd jobs here with some people, cutting wood and doing stuff, and I pick up 2-3 hours here. I put my application in McDonald's and A&W. I adapt and live in different places you wouldn't believe. And you live in a dumpster, right, for nights, or you live in a shed. You're living on the sidewalk.
Sheila McRae is a local store owner.
He sits in front of the store often, and he'll sit there for hours, and he chats with everybody. He's not violent. He doesn't ask for anything. He just shares stories.
Does he talk much about his hockey career?
He's never spoke of hockey to me.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe he feels abandoned.
You don't tell people about your hockey past. You just introduce yourself as Joseph. Why is that?
I've made that a point since I've been doing. I just want them to take care of me as a person, or what I'm doing as whatever I've done. And if I say I'm a player, is that going to change their view of me as a man or a person? So I just felt that I was just gonna. I just say my name, and that's it.
Months after his NHL career ended, Murphy was struggling. According to Joe, he reached out to Dan Cronin, the director of counseling for the NHL, asking for help.
I picked up the phone. It was some late. I was still up. Picked up the phone and I remember calling. And I said, he picked up the phone. He said his name. And I said, yeah, it's Joe calling. My name's Joe. You knew who I was, right? And and I said, I'm not really feeling that well, and I'm not doing well. I don't think. I maybe need some help. And you know what he said to me? He says, well, we're sorry to say this to you, but you're out of the league now, so when there's no help we give you. And hung the phone up. That was it. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, he hung the phone right up on me.
Cronin declined comment, but the NHL Players Association sent us this statement, which in part says, the NHLPA does not comment on the circumstances of an individual player. If a former player is willing to actively address issues they are facing, there is support available to them.
He asked for help, and he wasn't long out of the league. The league let him down.
Joe's sister, Kathy.
He deserves to have help. He didn't do anything wrong. It's easy to pass judgment and say, he's crazy, he's eccentric. He didn't go in crazy and eccentric. So tell me, what happened along the way?
The NHL and its fans will say, well, this is because Joe made bad choices. What do you think about that?
I think when you have brain injury and people to make judgment like that have no idea what they're talking about. His mind doesn't think like a normal person's mind thinks.
How did it affect you? What did you...
It affected me physically, mentally. It just affected, I just couldn't function. In an everyday life, but I still had to function, and it was scary.
He's passed out, and he's you know, come to on the floor and doesn't know why he's gotten there. His brain cannot focus. He has a hard time getting up. It's like a heavy depression. He's thought of ways of killing himself. You know, just to relieve the pain of this.
Only thing I could really say is that this was not like a pre-existing condition that he had. This was not who he was when I knew him. There was no eccentric, unusual behavior. He was a very normal, happy, bright, funny, extremely generous person.
For the past decade, Joe has been estranged from his ex-wife Julie and their daughter Crystal. For now, they can only sit with the memories.
You know, it's funny with this one, I remember whenever I would go and see him in Canada, he would always want to take pictures. And being a little kid, you know, was like embarrassed, like, Dad, stop, like, don't do that. And he'd always do that. And it's nice because we have these really nice pictures now. And I remember that, he would always do that. He would always say, like, you know, he stops and I'd be like, hey, we took our picture. I was like, but now it's nice, you know?
It is, I'm glad we have them.
I remember when he would come here, we would play board games. There was a board game called, I think it was called Pretty Pretty Princess. He was this big, tough hockey player, and I had him, you know, dressing up with earrings and necklaces, and he had all this stuff all over his head.
At age 51, Murphy's journey to the streets of Kenora is complicated. A combination of injuries, drugs, and bad choices. The question remains how to help him, and how to look away if Joe rejects the help.
It's devastating. He's my brother. What am I supposed to do? It makes me want to cry. He's a good human being. He doesn't deserve to live like this.
If I were face to face with my dad, I would just tell him that I love him, that I'm there for him, I support him. My dad has survived things that would kill most people. He is a survivor, and he can survive this too, but he has to fight and he has to take help.
It's a tragedy, but it's something that the hockey community should come together and recognize and try to help out on. This is one of us.
Cross ice to Murphy, scores!
If we can't be compassionate, empathetic, and helpful to this guy, then who is going to come to his side? It's got to be us. It's got to be the people that are in his fraternity, and that's us.
And W5 continues in a moment.